I'm going to talk to Caitlin a lot about creating a new identity for yourself, because the hero of her book is a girl who decides to become someone else. And in some sense, Caitlin did too, in adapting her name, not changing it completely, but adapting it. Did you ever consider changing your name or going for an initial? And I know you say this because I was doing something the other day with an author called M.R. Hall, who writes in the female voice, but is a man. So his publishers said, don't write as Matthew, write as M.R. Hall, because then they want to know. And obviously J.K. Rowling, for the same reason, but the opposite side of the same reason, writes as an androgynous author.
No, because I really like my name. Obviously it became a little bit vexing.
Yes, and it being London Fashion Week, there may be some in here who are confused.
And yes. I think they will be confused, obviously, because I am so very beautiful.
Exactly, and when you walked on, it could have been.
I know, it could have been. And of course, you can imagine, because I have lived on this earth rather longer. I am more tired. I am a lot shorter. And of course, there was suddenly this, like, everybody thinking it was the first time I'd ever heard this. Like, must be confusing, you never... And you go, it's not really awfully confusing for me. And also, you get these wonderful things. You know, I write novels with women heroes at the heart of it. I retell lost pieces of women's history. So when you get a television researcher ringing up saying, well, are you prepared to talk about anything? And I go, within reason, obviously. Are you prepared to talk about fur? I was like, fur? This was not for the taxidermist's daughter. So I suppose I will. And then, of course, the killer, will you talk about Pete Doherty? This was in the early days. I can give you a lot of information about Pete Doherty, dear. None of it will be true. So, you know, that was slightly vexing, but by that stage I was sort of out in the world. But no, I wouldn't, because you gave me beautiful walk-on music. You know, I remember reading Wuthering Heights when I was a teenager, and I had been, as I suspect like you, a lot of the books that we studied by women are in the end about finding a husband. Now, I think Jane Austen is obviously wonderful, but really, do we have to have lots of stuff about carriages and pianos? That's quite boring to me, not to other people, clearly. And then suddenly there was Wuthering Heights. And what is Wuthering Heights? It's a ghost story. It's a gothic novel. It's a novel about nature, about the storm and the calm. It's not a love story. It's a story of revenge and violence. It's a story about how women and men cannot be themselves. And suddenly I thought, thank God, there's a different sort of fiction which is about everything else in a woman's life, not about getting married and having children, which incidentally I have done, and I'm extremely happy. But there's a lot of those stories, so I was looking for something else. And so when you know that those extraordinary women, Emily, Charlotte, Anne, the two sisters, Maria and Emily, who died, Branwell, who drank himself to death, the father left alone with all his children dead in that rectory overlooking the graveyard, which is where it is. When you know that they couldn't publish under their names, and then they published their books, Wuthering Heights, obviously Jane Eyre, Tennant and Wildfeld Hall, and the reviews were okay. The minute they were revealed to be women, the comments made about Wuthering Heights were along the lines of things like, if I had a daughter or wife who had written this, I would urge them to kill themselves. Now, for me, the decision to put your name on a book is part of that. So I completely respect anybody else's decision, man or woman, to not want to be visible with their name. But I still feel that I'd like to be me and a writer. Because what does that say? It says to any young person, boy or girl, wherever they live in the world, this could be you. You don't have to be disguised. You could be yourself and be a writer. So I wanted to be visible as myself.